And joining me now is Democratic Senator Maria Cantwell, the top Democrat on the Commerce Committee, as well as a member of the Finance Committee. Senator, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And it's so timely that we're talking about this. What would your proposal do?
Well, we want Congress, who constitutionally is supposed to direct not just interstate commerce, but foreign commerce, to reassert itself in this discussion. Just like we approve trade deals, we should be able to review these trade and tariff policies that the administration is putting forth.
Why is it that that has not been something Congress has been able or willing to do?
Well, I think when we have given direction to presidents in the past and other administrations, most of the time they've gone and created trade policies. That is opening up with, say, Panama or Chile or Singapore or the Central America Free Trade Agreement, or most recently in the Trump administration, a revision to the USMCA. So most of the time, the policy has worked because the direction given to an administration has been used to open up markets. And in this case, it's being used in a very, very broad and we think misconstrued way to create a tariff policy, very, very broad, not related to.
So they're proposing a bill that they know is going to shit the bed because they don't have the numbers. I guess, Republicans would probably do the same thing if there was an issue that, that they didn't like very much. But obviously, I don't know the history on this stuff, but I've never heard of an issue where a president cannot institute a tariff. So, yeah, I don't know. It seems kind of like, they're just trying to rattle the cage. The market's dropped a little bit now, so that they're trying to pick up and piggyback on some not missteps, because everyone knew this was going to happen, right? Everyone knew this was going to happen. They're trying to take the little football that they have right now and get a couple yards with it, and let's see where else she goes.
A rules-based approach, and so we want to review that.
The fact that Senator Grassley has signed on to this, it's very clearly he is in the minority as far as Republican senators. But yesterday, 4 Republican senators did vote to stop the president's tariffs on Canada. Specifically, the House probably won't even take that up. What do you think about the odds of your proposal going forward?
Well, the reason why Senator Grassley and I wanted to work together on a very thoughtful approach and why we kept it to the two of us is because as the ranking member on commerce, obviously I know a lot, and my state is a very big export commerce state. We know a lot about this authority granted by the Constitution to Congress. And Senator Grassley, as the previous chair of the Finance Committee, has been involved in the last several years, not only in these trade agreements, but in trying to look at a policy that we could get our colleagues to join in on. And so he's had other attempts in the past during the last Trump administration. So now we hope that our colleagues will take a look at this today, because the urgency of, we don't want to start trade wars. We want to see trade agreements and opening up of markets. But
yeah, but in the same time, and then again, this is me coming from a libertarian perspective, from a lot of my ideas and philosophies that I've grown about come about with like Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell and things of that nature, where they would espouse free trade, right? Meaning that you put zero tariffs on everything. If people want to sell you shit at a lower price, fine. And then essentially what that does is that the marketplace that is created here over the cheaper goods will counterbalance the manufacturing, right? So for example, tube socks. We don't make them here. Maybe we make like high end, I don't know, but you can get a cheap pair of Chinese socks for $10 for a pack of 10, like $1 for each, right? So the question is, do you want super high prices for tube socks because they're made in America and that's going to promote American manufacturing, or just bring the damn socks over from China and then it'll create an industry of sales that happen in here, and then that's the way you'll do it. The overall consumer will get a cheaper price. There'll still be some type of an industry here for sale and distribution, and you just chalk it up to that. We don't have to make tube socks here, right? It's a hard thing to do to get people to buy expensive socks. That's just the reality. In other industries, maybe I'm not too familiar with. Again, I personally don't agree. So the reciprocal tariffs, I'm down with. Like if ultimately, like, I personally would be down with zero tariffs, but that's a discussion for another day. Reciprocal tariffs, I can stomach. And it's because it is, it's trying to level out the playing field, right? In my view, we don't have to level out the playing field because we're freaking amazing, right? I'll buy the cheaper stuff, have it distributed here. But the protection of tariffs, I'm definitely against. Now, I don't think they have a stake in the game. I don't think they have an argument to be made. Maybe they do. I don't know. Let's see.
But there's not a reason to impact all these businesses and households with higher costs right now, particularly when inflation is still high.
And so just looking at both the states that both of you represent, Washington and Iowa, such ag-centric, ag-heavy states that give so much and contribute so much, not only to our economy, but they feed much of the world in so many ways. I'm just wondering the impact you see on this broad-based series of tariffs across every single country that we trade with for our agricultural products.
Well, good question, because that is the big concern. The United States grows much more food than to just feed Americans. And by having access to those foreign markets, it's a lot of jobs. When the Trump tariffs went into effect, I have almost between 7 and 8.
Right. But see, it's a disingenuous argument. So we're selling them stuff. Okay. The tariff isn't for stuff that's leaving. It's for stuff that's coming in. They can still buy whatever the hell they want. Right? If what she's implying is that because we're tariffing them, then they're going to tariff us, that is not what I've seen. Right? So what I've seen is that they are tariffing us, therefore we're going to match their tariff. Right? So whatever it is, let's say it's rice. I don't know. And if Canada is tariffing our rice that is being sent over there, so that they can have control of their production over there, then we'll say, all right, so we're going to do the same thing. And now we're even Stevens. That's it. Right? So saying that the other people are consumers of our stuff, that doesn't make sense. What ultimately is being hurt, and who ultimately is going to feel the pain of this, right, is essentially going to be in the short term, middle class America. That's just a fact. I'm not, that's why it's kind of a risky move for Trump to make right now, because middle class America, they're going to be the ones that feel this, off the bat, because if the products that were coming in were cheaper, now they're going to be more expensive. So now essentially what they're saying is, like, if China was selling us a 10-pound bag of rice for $10, and America, we were selling that same 10-pound bag of rice for $15. All right, so you're going to levy a tariff against China, making that bag of rice $15. So now what are the Americans going to do? They're going to buy the American rice for $15, but guess what? They're still spending more money. Ultimately, they're still spending more money. Will that cause China eventually to lower their tariffs, bring everything on an even playing field? So now that 15 goes back down to 10 or 8, and then that will boost American production. I don't know. It's a risky move. It's a risky move.
8,000 families involved in apple growing in the state of Washington. That those previous tariffs curtailed those activities, and we lost huge $100 million markets. So we've gotten them reopened, particularly with India, and we don't want to see them closed again, because while we could keep farmland in the future, I guarantee you, if this is prolonged, you will lose farm families. And I'm not interested in having big corporations just own all the farmland. So
now, again, I would like to ask her, what's your measurement for that? Right? Why would we lose farm families if foreign produced products, especially produce, is now more expensive? In my view, you would have to increase farm families, right? If the incentive is now shifted to producing stuff here, then you wouldn't lose labor. Labor is not the issue, right? And this is what, this is a very complex, very dense topic. The issue is not labor. Will labor go up as a result of this? Yes. How long would it take? Who knows? However, the issue is the onset of higher prices, right? If labor comes, so the notion is we get more manufacturing here, the labor market goes up, the labor market becomes stronger, people start making more money, therefore will offset the higher prices coming in from abroad. That's a pretty long scale program. That's not something you're going to see in 2 months, right? The hope is, I would think, that tariffs are levied, they put themselves in check, remove their tariffs from us, so now we can sell them stuff at a fair rate, they can sell us stuff at a fair rate, and now, again, like I said, we're even.
The growing middle class around the world is a great market for U.S. agriculture products.
What about all of the restrictions that some of these countries around the world have to receiving our agricultural products? And I'm thinking a lot more about, grains and things that have been modified. Is that kind of opposition to our agricultural products, something that could be negotiated when it's more than just an economic reason. They're defending it from American products for other reasons.
Like health.
Yes. And so that's why you need rules-based trade. You need to say, we are for opening these markets. Here are the rules and why trade agreements in the past. So in the Bush administration, we did some of these very big agreements, as I mentioned, Singapore, Peru, Chile. And guess what? They now have turned into being some of the biggest markets where we have more exports to those countries. And so that is what we need to be doing. But when you start a tariff war, the consequences to all of these growers in the meantime can mean huge disruption. And what I think we would like people to think about is that even the last administration, there had been a big change to today, where competition is happening much faster, where getting on the market shelves of some other country might prohibit us, even when the agreement's over with, to get access back to that market. So we don't want people realigning without us. We've been a great aligner. The United States has been the person that says, these are the rules, and this is what you should all follow, and let's go do this. And we want to keep building that.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. What would you say to people who point out TPP, NAFTA, CAFTA, even USMCA and say, you know what, the Americans, our own people, have been pretty bad at negotiating these free trade agreements? And I'm thinking of TPP and what happened there. What do you say to people who are saying, you know what, just our own negotiators in the past have been really poor?
Well, this was a huge USMCA negotiation, and where colleagues of mine like Sherrod Brown and other Democrats who never voted for trade agreements voted for them because they put labor standards in place. And those labor standards of making those countries meet that, I actually also passed into law making sure that USTR had more lawyers to enforce our trade agreements. We had just a handful of lawyers over there. So when we threatened a country and said, listen, adhere to this agreement you signed, no one was backing that up. And so what I want to see is us to continue to grow these rules-based systems, get other countries to buy in. I think right now we should have a huge alliance on technology. If we want to stop China, we should say the 5 most sophisticated technology and democracy countries only buy from people who don't have a government backdoor. So that kind of alliance building would give the United States a lot of clout.
Yeah, these things are super complicated. They're complex. There's a lot of moving parts. You know, the average person trying to listen to this and trying to get, a handle on this, it's going to be tough, right? It's a tough sell. So I think, I'm sure, and this is a part where I'm down with listening to both sides and seeing what's going on, right? I don't want to see somebody that is going to argue for argument's sake, right? It seems like, even though I don't agree, it seems like, obviously, Grassley is whatever, but he's on board with this, so he is a Republican. So you got to see where it goes. Like I said, Trump has had many years to think this through. This is the road they're going to take. It's something that we haven't tried before. Let's give it a shot. Maybe it shits the bed. Middle class, gets pissed because things go up, and then we'll have to assess it at that point. But like I said before, I've been saying it the entire time, the reciprocal tariff thing, I don't have an issue with as much. Just try to level out the playing field. In my personal opinion, I think that especially manufacturing these menial products, not necessary. There's no need to protect those industries. If China has, China has slave labor and whatever it is, and they're selling us things for 5 cents, does it suck? Kind of. Maybe not really. Like, for the most part, do we need those things made here? I'm more concerned with medicine. Like, why don't we do that? Why don't we say, hey, make some antibiotics here? Make some of the things that we need here. Chip production, whatever that is. That stuff, that's super high end stuff, right? And we're not making it here. We're concerned about these bullshit products that it takes a factory, like whatever, like if these menial textile products, like why do we need to make that stuff here? In my view, I don't think those things need to be protected. You want to ship them in here, and the people, the middle class people can get it at a cheap rate. Fine. Why don't we go after the things that actually take technical skill to produce? Like we don't make any chips here. Or medicine. Like it's I don't know. I think the argument's all over the place. People are talking past each other. Nobody's really listening. And again, the reason is because it's a complicated subject. This is not something you could sit down with somebody and read a headline and understand, right? These are complicated, layered subjects. Glad you guys are all here. Please give me a like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate it, especially the subscriptions. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you again real soon. Thanks a lot for coming out.